Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to another episode of the GMAT exam studies, the Kenya Elite program. In these videos, we bring you techniques and how you can approach GMAT exam questions. In this session, we're going to discuss and just to look a bit more onto the science of a successful GMAT exam prep. Sounds funny. Is there anything like a science, really? Anyway, we'll dive in and see. This is something which is close to me, and I believe that it's a technique that can be applied by anyone learning and preparing for the exam and be able to pass. This is something I bumped into when I was preparing for exam personally, and the application of these techniques really helped improve my scores from 510 to 670 in about 2 months. That is from about the 40th percentile or 30th percentile to the 80th percentile, which is really good. So I think it's wise. It would be helpful to someone if I will share this. And at the same time, also if applied it to other people, with other students, and they've been able to pass. So yeah, let's dive in and see what we have in store for this. Right. So what do you expect? First of all, I'd like to know, is there such a thing as a science? Or there is just none? It's just something, or just talking. Okay, this is science. The same time, we also want to look at the forgetfulness curve and how to interrupt it. And does it really work? That's something. So, and if you ask about the science, is there proof that there are effective techniques that exist out there? That is one that we'll be looking into. And at the same time, also, what are the details that we'll be getting into the forgetfulness curve, which is the main thing that why we learn. When we learn, and the biggest challenge you do face when learning is forgetting, because when you learn something and you can't recall it, then you feel like you haven't learned it. So there's a forgetfulness curve, and it can be interrupted. So how do you interrupt it? Of course, we look at that, and does it really work? So maybe that will be up to me and you. Maybe we'll see. It may vary from person to person, but let's not focus on that so much. So is this getting as a science? So this this whole thing actually it changed with me when I bumped into one of the bloggers posts on YouTube. I think it was on a masterclass by Ali Abdal. Actually, was talking about the science of making mistake and uh, the science of successful learning, which is this book right here. And this book actually it's actually authored by Brown PC, Rodiger H.L. the third, and McDaniel M.A. in 2014. They did some research studies at Cambridge and also the other co-creators, and they came together. They found quite some interesting findings on the same. They're not the first ones, though, to do it. These have been done before, and what they did was just to confirm and verify them and did them over quite number of years. And you can get the details if you look up that paper and also the book. Really changed how I approach my studies, and from there, actually, everything out. So I would say yes, there is a science because it's proof that it can work. At the same time, also it's under the psychological sciences and so on and so forth. Not the aim of this video, but just a good thing to know that it does work. So anybody who applies this actually be able to get some degree of learning to some extent. So the degree that you may get may vary from person to person, but then again, these are things which have been proven to exist. So the book cover looks like what you're seeing on the screen on the right. So that's what the book cover looks like. In case you buy it and want to look into it, you can get it online and just buy it and so on and so forth, and make make some get some information for yourself if you get it. So that's basically there is a science. That's what I will say, and it exists. So what is this forgetfulness curve? And what's interesting thing about it? So this curve is basically it's just a curve. It's a curve of time and knowledge retention. Maybe let's draw a curve. Let's see how it is. It applies in pretty much so many areas of life. So excuse my excuse me sketch. So this actually can actually call it maybe knowledge retention. Then this is time. So this happens almost everywhere. And we could actually see this in action in almost various aspects of one's life. As long as there is knowledge involved, process, you will see this thing really come into play. And here's what normally happens when when you consume content the first time, you retain a very high amount of it. Let's say that this could be as high as 100%. So not on to scale, but it could be at that point up there. So that's when you first read that content, consume some content, something new, you're reading it. You'll be up there in terms of knowledge retention, close to 100%. You may not retain 100%, but as close as possible to 100%. Give it 24 hours and come up the following day, you'll have forgotten about a half of that knowledge that you had consumed. And that's now just like on day one. So this curve, I've just shifted a bit to the right. Maybe zero could be here, like day zero or actually time zero now, and you just consume, finish reading it. Then now day one, two, three, and so on and so forth. Day one. Come, give it another one more day. You'll have forgotten about half of that knowledge. Another day, okay, another half of that. And over time, it keeps decreasing, until in some cases, you end up having zero knowledge. So this is what the curve looks like. And to demonstrate this, probably just if you could recall, like in life scenarios, maybe where now you've had a chance to like consume content and so on and so forth. Some of the things you read quite some years back, you may not recall. Yeah. Some of the things also which you may have read in a book, sometimes you may not recall. But if there's something interesting, probably that you can't recall, you can recall scant information about it. So that's what will determine now where actually this curve will be. So you recall some scant information that I remember reading something in a book about this and this. But that book wasn't just about that only, it was about other things, but most likely you've forgotten them. So that is the thing. And it tends to apply. The interesting thing is that it applies in almost every other aspect of our lives. I could relate this probably, this is just a hypothetical scenario. It may not be so accurate, but it's a hypothetical scenario where when I was in high school, and actually we used to have motivational speakers come to school, and they would come and talk to us, and not just in high school, but also even just when you watch motivational videos and or even read a book and they get fired up. Yes, I'm gonna do this and I'll do this, take these steps and this, and in 30 days I'll be in this position, or in 1 year, or this time I'll be in this position. That's the first day. You're really fired up and you feel so happy. Give it one day, the fire starts becoming feeling a bit more weaker and weaker. And before you know it, you may actually lack almost no motivation on something. So it's a different scenario, but many times also like the reason why I'll pick up motivational speaking or these motivational talks we get, it's simply because that give it a day or two, most likely you'll have forgotten what you had or what you consumed about that motivation. So if you can't recall what actually you are motivated about or what was making you motivated because they were words, if you can't recall that, then chances of you still staying motivated will be quite low. So there are a bunch of other areas which maybe you may think about, and you may see this also applicable. But that's the curve of how actually it is. So now, if this is the curve, does it happen to almost everything? Yes, possibly, yes. So how do you interrupt it? So again, let's do a curve again that you have it here. Or let's say knowledge and time. Knowledge retention, and then our time t. Yeah, so that is curve. Then I had it slope it that way over time. So yeah, that is what the curve was like. So here's the thing. How do you interrupt it? Of course, it's obviously interrupted by retaining knowledge, but how do you retain knowledge? That's the question that will be. So how do you retain knowledge? That is not what that book is all about, and that's what the techniques also, we should talk about this in summary, in a nutshell, applicable to a GMAT exam and anything else maybe learning. That's basically something which would be up to you. So on the first day you read something, the normal curve as you're seeing it is that it slopes downwards and you keep forgetting, you forget about half and so on and so forth over time. And what happens when you come again and read the same content second time? The knowledge retention again goes back. This time around now, when actually as days go by, you tend to forget not about half, but less than half, or actually quite some information that you may have consumed. So you forget, and some, of course, you'll forget, but the rate at which you forget now will decrease. So the second time you see, it will be Yeah. So come back again after about a week or even some time and again read the same content, consume the same content. Again, the knowledge retention will be back up there. At this point in time, over time, you'll start retaining more and more and more information. I found this to be quite fascinating. And actually, it was something that you know, but you just never paid attention to it. So what you see that is that as time goes on, you keep retaining more and more information, and you will end up retaining quite a huge portion of it. If you look at that position there, compared to this, if you just do it once, there is quite probably a significant difference between those two regions. So, and those two, which nurture the amount of knowledge you retain in those two scenarios. So, this is how you will interrupt it, and this is something which has been proven. This also actually probably explains why, when you were in school, we had to read, do revision, to repeat and recite and do say things over and over again. Some of those things you recite them today. Some of the things you know in biology and also the basics of chemistry and some math and everything else. We tend to know them because we consume the content multiple times over a period of time and ended up retaining quite a huge amount of information. So that's the same thing also which also would apply to you if you are preparing for the GMAT exam. Retain that knowledge or consume it multiple times to retain the knowledge. I recall actually one of the areas was having a challenge in the GMAT, in my GMAT journal was a critical reasoning content. And the book I was using was a critical reasoning Bible by PowerScore. And I think I read that book so many times, multiple times, at least 3 times, I recall. And it's simply because at times you find that this is something pretty new to me. I had never been exposed to critical reasoning as something which I need to understand the nitty-gritties around. And the way verbal is abstract in the GMAT exam, my actual approach to learning is that I need to understand what I'm getting myself into or what this is all about first, then I can be able to apply it. So I would go ahead and study over and over again, like for instance, what is an assumption, what is a premise, or what is a conclusion, how do you identify a conclusion, and so on and so forth. What does the correct answer look like when it comes to an assumption question? How do you strengthen an argument? What does the correct answer look like in an argument? And until I was able to know what these ones are, wow, and what they are, and knew them by heart, then and only then, actually, it was easier for me to apply. It became easier for me to apply and be able to apply them to questions and say, okay, for this question, this is what we're supposed to be looking out for. This is what the conclusion should be look like. This is what the assumption in this argument is like. And therefore, that will be it. Therefore, I should look for an answer choice which probably contains this or this, and this will be the answer. And it ended up being quite accurate. The same also applies to quant when I had to know all the concepts, need to know the concepts, the formulas, the rules that apply, the algebraic identities, and so on and so forth. When you know them and you see a question, actually, you know that, okay, of course, this question actually needs to apply. Let's say, for instance, let me just say, for instance, you have like, let's say, how do you find numbers at whole, let's say 99 squared, let's say something like this. So this is actually a question that in math, let's say, then let's just make it equal 99 squared. So how would you probably do this and find the answer? Of course, if you look at it, it may look like it's something which would be pretty much just require you to do all the calculations and look at the multiple choices. But in actual sense, this number is also 999 as it is equal to 100,000 rather minus 1. Yeah. So what will this be? So you have 1,000 minus 1 squared. This translates to being from actually algebraic elliptic knowledge, this is actually a minus b squared. What will you have? A squared plus 2ab minus 2 minus a minus b. Okay. What do you call it? Yeah, a squared, what do you call it? A squared plus b squared minus 2ab. If you don't know this identity, these are things which I read them, I studied them about more than 2 years ago from the time I'm creating this video, but still I can recall them. Now, this one now you can easily be able to go ahead and do this and be able to, this actually will be 1,000,000 plus 1 minus 2001, something like that. Then you just subtract and you get the answer pretty much quickly. That is now how to apply this. So such concepts, knowing them, remembering them and repeating them over and over, you'll be able to know them and interrupt the forgetfulness curve. So the first time you read maybe this one, it may look like it's stimulating because the first thing is not to know this part. That's the first thing I need to know. So you come and know this. Once you read this the first time, you may actually remember it, or maybe not. Come again over time, you start remembering, okay, a minus b squared. I know there's an a squared, and I know there is some minus sign. I know there is maybe some then there's b squared. But what have I forgotten? I've forgotten something. You go look at the material again. Oh, there's some 2ab there. So that's something which I should go. Okay, so next time again you come and you're interrupting the curve. As you do that, interrupting the curve over and over again. So and that is how you keep interrupting this curve. That was quite profound. Okay, it doesn't require rocket science, but the fact that you can get something which appeals to your logic.
You are watching Success with Bob Mwiti Show, presented to you by Upstack America. Upstack America is a consulting company that helps immigrants find amazing higher education and job opportunities in the tech industry in the United States. You can find our programs by going to www.upstackamerica.com. Upstack America, we wake you up to the unlimited potential.
So what are these ways that can be used to be able to make it stick from the book? Now that actually be able to make the sound that you're learning successful. These are some of the tips from that book that actually are there that you can apply in your studies. And the key is to use testing as a tool to retrieve learning from memory rather than a dipstick or a form of judgment of how much someone knows. For instance, you read algebra, or actually you studied algebra a day or two ago, and you're asking yourself, okay, how much do I know? Somehow we tend to think too high than we ought to think of ourselves, and we may misjudge how much we know. So we may say, I think, I studied this topic, I think I know pretty much more than half, but how will you know that? The only way to know that is to quiz yourself. So quiz yourself on the concepts to get that knowledge from your memory, because you only know you've learned something if you can get it off your head. If you can't get it off your head, then you haven't learned it yet. That is all. Secondly, as you learn something, pause occasionally and ask yourself, what have you learned and how do they relate to what you know? Yeah. So what have you learned? Like a minus b, a minus b squared, all that. So you can see learn that. For instance, if it was actually once you know the concepts and you're going to do the approaches, you learn that okay. So I can apply this concept to be able to solve something like 199 squared, or even actually a 990 squared. I can use that to solve such kind of a question because I can be able to do that. So as you do that, just pause and recall that I can do this and you can let what you know. Because you know a minus b squared, which it is. And then the approach now part comes to being able to solve for those two, like by marrying them together. That really actually be able to reinforce what you know like it's meant. Instead of reading materials, use quizzes. So before you can go back and read material for a second time, use quizzes. Do I know this? Yes. To what extent do I know it? Probably I'm not sure, but when I go to test myself or quiz myself, I think I've got this and this correct, this and this wrong. So maybe let me go back and study this. So you actually you give your brain a reason on what to study. So your brain, hey, you've forgotten about this. When you go back to study this thing, make sure you try and tell me this. Is that okay? Yeah, that's okay. So you go back with much more focus and you pay more attention to those areas, those nuances, because the brain also as it is, may only focus for so long. You may study for 2 hours, you may study for let's say then 3 hours, that also do that. But probably along the way, there are some parts which you may miss out and you may not notice them. The only way to know that is if you quiz yourself. So set aside also some time to quiz yourself regularly on past and new materials as you study on the topic you wish to master. So as you study, put aside some time and also be able to quiz yourself. Remember to check your answers so that you can correct your mistakes. Don't memorize the answers, but memorize what leads to the answer. So that is most important, especially the GMAT exam. Memory isn't actually the application of answer memory isn't actually the best way of testing knowledge, but the application of the approaches to getting the answers. That is the most important thing. That is the most important thing. So quiz yourself, if at all, you can be able to recall the concepts and the approaches to be able to get the correct answers. So use spacing, interleaving, and variation. Spaced practice means that you spread out your retrieval sessions with a meaningful time gap between sessions. So recall the curve that you had. Let me try and draw it here. Yeah, that's now as you had it here. So give it some time. Give it some time. Don't come or just come tomorrow and repeat the same. People tend to do that. Okay, to do that, eventually what they do it by let's say they just want to study quant only or just one topic, normal properties only until they master it. Then they move to the next one. Then they move to the next one. By the time you're done with all that, and you come back to normal properties, you may have reached here on normal properties. And then now you begin again to study again on properties and you are back up there. And then you find yourself over time again, you've gone again, and then you go back and check, the time done again, number properties, you go and check again the next topic which you had read. Again, you're down here. And it becomes frustrating. So instead of doing this, please recommend it is more effective if today you study, let's say, one topic, tomorrow do a different topic. I recommend you do interchange between quant and verbal on alternating days. When you come back 4 days later, 3 days later to check on what you studied about this topic and you find that it is probably somewhere here, when you come back and bring it up here and also the same thing for every other topic, eventually you'll have a more stable curve in terms of knowledge on almost all the topics and not up on one and down on the other. So that is something which really, really helps in actually using the spacing, interleaving in the space practice. Interleaving means alternating topics deliberately, leaving regular blanks or intervals between practices. Yeah, and that is exactly what I'm talking about. What I'm also just trying to talk about. This is more effective than focusing on the same problem or topic for an extended period of time. Yeah. So that is what will happen if you do that. And variation rather than also repeating the same practice every time, vary the type of context in your retrievals. So this actually applies very well when you're doing especially like a concept quiz. Don't just quiz yourself on one topic, but quiz yourself on multiple topics. And if possible, mix up knowledge, mix up the quizzes. We have actually also we also have a knowledge assessment task that quiz for the concepts, which actually it is in an Excel file. You can do the first one, then you go to the last one, then you go to the middle one, from one topic to the next topic, from quant to verbal, and so on and so forth. Because when you actually get to challenge your brain that way, your brain will have to find a way of working harder to be able to get there, to know that information, and actually you'll know if you have it or not. That's also the same thing that the GMAT exam does. The GMAT exam never brings you questions in the same topic consecutively. That's a rare occurrence. And if it happens, not more than two. Of course, you'll do quant on its own, then verbal on its own, then also the data insights on its own. But the concept you studied in quant, you won't get the same concept being tested twice. But yeah, so if you get that, you need to be able to. So actually, what they're doing is they give you a topic, they give a question on this topic, on this probability. Then the next one is on algebra. The next one is number property. The next one is ratios, time and what and so not. And it gets all mixed up. So if you start doing that early, and they do that to test if you really know this thing, because many times you may find a topic you're not so familiar, then it throws you off balance, and then you panic. And the moment you panic, that's just it. So that's basically some of the best practices that you can apply from this book. So other good things to know, which are also in the book, effortful learning. Yeah, learning as actually many times we let ourselves that learning should be easy as it is reading. Yeah, because you can read, we all can read. And because you can read, we assume that also learning should be as easy as we are reading. That won't be the case. That is not the case. In fact, if learning is easy, most likely it's not something new. You're not learning anything new. If you're learning something new, it will be effortful. I don't say it will be hard. You actually need to put in quite some effort to be able to confirm that you've learned something. This is because you read today, then you forget, and then actually come tomorrow and that you don't recall, and it feels so bad. It's okay for the first days. If it happens over a long period of time, then that is something to be of concern. Maybe you need to review your techniques or what you may be missing out. But learning is not easy. You start doing some topic and you find that it's totally new and you don't seem to be making progress. That is the learning process. The learning process is not an easy one. It's actually quite an effortful one. Yeah. It's all about learning structures and not the learning styles. Yeah. So people prefer actually learning by watching videos and so on and so forth, and reading and so on and so forth. That is okay, but the learning structure, does a structure suit the model line that you need? Yeah. If actually it's a demonstration of probably application of some concepts, then a video will do. If it is actually then now also like probably not doing your own practice or preparing to practice for the exams, you're better off studying or reading actually from actually a device, because the exam is going to be a reading exam. The GMAT exam is a reading exam. So you should do more of reading than actually watching videos. Most of it should be on the reading and application of the read or studied material from your mind. So it's all about this. No, so the style is not actually the important thing, but the structure is. Routine also comes into this. You get a timetable. What time do you study? How long do you study? And so on and so forth. Putting in a structure, because there are habitual beings, and at the same time, over time, you'll see the compounding effect of learning. At the same time, also the reason of avoiding the illusions of knowledge happens very much in learning. Very much. Here's the thing. How does this illusion of knowing happen? Is where actually you do know about something. If you ask about the definition of anything, you can talk about it. But if you ask about the details of how it works or explain it in a simple language, you cannot explain it. Yeah. If you can't explain something that you think you know, then you haven't really known it. You just have the illusion of knowing it. In the GMAT exam, also it presents itself a lot in the form of questions, familiar questions. So you see a question and you do it and get it wrong, and you go check out and look up actually look up how it was done and why did you get it wrong? What was the correct answer? Many times you jump right to the answer. What was the correct answer? The answer was C. May I choose D? Then you ask yourself, why did I choose C? Then you go, but at that point in time, maybe the main goal at that point in time was to know what the correct answer was. So the next time you see a question, that question again, you see the next time, I know the answer is D, but do I know how it was done? Do I know how that D was arrived at? No. Maybe actually that's something else. And normally this normally comes to things that what do you call it? That you know, trying to recall that matrix, then no, they don't know. And there's you. The knowledge itself. I'm trying, let me say, I hope I'm able to bring this out well. There's knowledge, then there is you, the person. So these are now knowledge that these are the things that you know that you know. These are now again is know, then you don't know. There's you. So the things about the knowledge, this is not the content that you do have, no knowledge of content or material, something like that. Yes. There's knowledge content, then there is you. The things that you know, like let's talk of the algebraic identity. I was talking about like maybe I know them and I know that I know algebraic identities. Yeah, there's that cell, you know. I know A plus B all into bracket squared is A squared plus B squared plus 2AB. A minus B all into bracket squared is A squared plus B squared minus 2AB. And so on and so forth. So those that I know. Yeah. And then there are those that I know that I don't know. If you ask about how do you approach this one, okay, that one I don't know. That's okay. Yeah. Then actually, there's also the item content that you don't know that you know. These are the things that you surprise yourself with. Yeah. Oh, I got that right. I didn't know that I know how to do it. Yeah. It's a good place. Surprises. The ants not to see. Surprise yourself. Yeah. Oh, there's the knowledge content. I didn't know that I know that. Okay, I'll do this. Let me try. How about this and this? Okay. I get you. That's okay. Then there's that item that you don't know that you don't know. Dangerous. Dangerous. Now, this cell is a cell to avoid the learning process. This is the one to avoid and reduce this as much as possible. move it from this place to that. And on rare occasions, have it there. And then eventually bring it all up here. So the things that you don't know that don't know. If you don't know that don't know so much, you're in the dangerous, actually quite disadvantage. You'll do an exam or do a test and you'll just get like, okay, you need to know that much. So that's where now quizzing yourself comes in, because when you quiz yourself, you get to know what don't I know. So you get to move this information from here to now that you know that you don't know this, so I need to go and study about it. Yeah. And then of the things that you've known that you've known, but you know that you know, for instance, like what is the question about? This is about this and that. What do you know about it? I know about this and about this and about this. So how can I combine these two to get the answer? Okay, I can combine it this way and that way, and yeah. Wow. Oh, it worked. It's correct answer. Didn't I know that? Oh my, that's great. That's also there. But this is the place to avoid. It's a dangerous place whenever you're learning. This is also the place that you will have. So anyway, if you're able to sort this out, then you shall have sorted out most of the problems in learning and you'll have a successful GMAT prep, scientifically proven. And as you can see, it applies in very many areas, applied to so many other areas of my learning process, and it works quite well. It's actually works quite well. So thanks you once again for attending this session, for watching this video. If you found this helpful, you can share it with your friends and also anybody else who may find this useful. Please share with them. Feel free. If you have any questions, share with me. If you want to look more into the content, also look at it. Also, watch the other video that you created on how to be able to prepare yourself in 3 months. All this can be done in 3 months successfully, and you pass exam. Also, we do have a GMAT training session that you can also enroll on, join, and learn how you can also be able to pass with us. So with that said, thanks very much and see you again next time.